Today we will be starting from the Kalaamullah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But before we go on, we may take a few minutes to review what was done in the previous class with the Ma'iyya of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and at the same time affirming His Uluw, which is His Highness. And I will give the floor to Sheikh Mumin to start and give us a review of last class as well. Jazakallah khairan.
Alhamdulillah wa salatu jazakumullah khairan. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Man tabi'ahum ila yawm ad-din amma ba'd. Let's see, let's pull it up 1 second. Here. Okay, so we took the Ithbat al-Ma'iyat al-Allah. So we said that Ma'iyya is 2 types of Ma'iyya. It's basically Ma'iyya al-Amma, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Did we agree on a word, by the way, to use? Or did we just say we're going to use Ma'iyya?
We just said really Ma'iyya, because omnipotence, we said that it requires extra explanation.
Yeah, correct. Okay. So we have the Ma'iyya of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's divided into 2. The Ma'iyya of Al-Amma, the general Ma'iyya, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He knows, He has knowledge, He sees everyone, everything that they do, whether it's a kafir or a Muslim or animal, anybody or anything, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He can see them. But here the Ma'iyya Al-Amma refers to the people, which is Muslims and non-Muslims, the good and the bad of them. And then Ma'iyya Khasa is basically is specific, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He mentions certain people. He mentions those who are in jihad, those who are patient, those who are in war. So that specific Ma'iyya that refers to any that also where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sees them, and also He's gonna aid them and assist them, and whatever pertains to their status, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He's with them in His assistance, His protection of them, His gaining them allowing them to gain victory. So those are basically the 2 types of Ma'iyya. And what else did we take last week? Sorry.
And we took Uluw.
Oh, the Uluw. So we believe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sunnah. We believe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He's above His throne, above His creation. And we believe obviously in His Highness, which no one disagrees about that, all the different sects, but also in His essence. We believe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He's above His throne. And again, we don't put a how, we don't put a tamthil or a takif. We say what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says about Himself. He is above His thrones, and we also above His throne. And we also mentioned the question, so if that's the case, if Allah is above His throne, how do we take the ayah, or afwan, how do we take the hadith where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the last third of the night, He comes down to the heavens, and He asks who wants forgiveness. The hadith. And then we said that just like how we don't ask how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He sees every single person, that's impossible for us creation, obviously, to see even 2 different people in 2 different places. We can't fathom that. But to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we asked, we don't confine Him to the system that we have as a creation. As a creation, we have a system. We have limits to what we can do, what we can't do. And to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, first of all, we don't even now know how He is subhanahu wa ta'ala, to even try to think about how He can do certain things. Like, for example, how can Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and no one would question this, but how can Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hear just 20 different people in 20 different countries? How can Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala listen to all of them and also respond to all of them, respond to what they're asking for? There's nothing abnormal about that, because He's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. everything. He says kun fayakun. So that's not anything, it shouldn't be a big deal. And generally speaking, this, for example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hearing 20 different people in 20 different countries, no one would question it, because they know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He's Allah. He's all hearing. He can do everything, anything that He wishes. So the same thing. We're not going to confine Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to our limits, to our creation. And they fell into takyif and also tamthil by trying to avoid saying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala comes down, or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala aslan is even above His throne. So because of that, they fell into tamthil, so they have to do ta'wil. They have to do ta'til and tahrif. They have to try to change the zahir meaning of what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, and what the Salaf understood from it, what the pious predecessors understood from it. But as we said before, the Aqeedah, we believe in what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us about His sifat, His asma wa sifat, bila ta'til wala tahrif, and also without takyif or tamthil, without rejecting what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in His own book about His own self, and also without trying to change, whether it's changing the meaning or actually changing the actual wording. We don't do these two, nor do we do takyif, nor do we ask how, because we don't know. Like I said before multiple times, the only way you know how something is when you see it yourself. No one ever seen Allah, nor or we have something that's similar to Allah. There's nothing there's nothing similar to Him, or someone trustworthy explains it to you. And we don't have that from the Qur'an and Sunnah, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, his essence is being described in that way. So we can't ask how, nor is it logical to even ask how, nor do we put tamthil, nor do we compare Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to any of His creation or anything, because anything other than Allah is created, is His creation. For that establishes, we believe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we mentioned, or Mu'allif rahimahullah, he mentioned many verses about how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Ya Isa inni mutawafika wa rafi'uka ilay. He told Isa, I'm going to take you and raise you to myself. And obviously raise here means to go up. And there's a famous story of Imam al-Haramain, Juwayni, rahimahullah. He's one of the heads of the modern day Ash'ari. He was teaching one day, and then a man came to him, and he was using all this different logic to say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala isn't above His throne, as the Ash'aris believe. And then a man came to him, and then he told him, "Oh Imam, forget all this philosophy, all this stuff that you're speaking. What do you say about the natural disposition that we have, the fitrah that we have, where when we call upon Allah, we have a sense of, when we raise our hands or we just look up?" And even the Prophet ﷺ, he would look up when he made dua, as in Surah Al-Baqarah. But anyway, we have the sense of fitrah, a natural disposition, where we look up. And even in the hadith of the Naml, the ant, it would raise its hand and up towards the sky for rain. So this man asked him, what do you say about that feeling that we have, where when we make dua, we have this sense of fitrah that we have to look up, or we look up, and subhanAllah, you even see that Ash'ari, modern day today, they make dua, they look up. There's a sense of, like, you would never look down making dua or look to your right or look to your left. It's just a natural disposition where you look up. So Imam Juwayni, he just paused and he couldn't think of an answer because it was very overwhelming for him. And then he said, Hayyarani al-Hamadani. Hayyarani al-Hamadani. Hamadani, he really got me in like a tough position. because he knew exactly what he was talking about. That feeling, that sense of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most high above his creation. This is basically just a recap of what we took last week, inshallah. And then we're going to, inshallah, we're about to start that al-kalam lillah.
جزاك الله خيرا.
Yeah.
إثبات كلام الله تعالى, affirming the speech of Allah. وقوله تعالى ومن أصدق من الله حديثا, and his saying, who is more truthful in speech than Allah. وقوله تعالى ومن أصدق من الله قيلا, who is more truthful in statements than Allah. وإذ قال الله يا عيسى ابن مريم, when Allah said, O Jesus, son of Mary, وَتَمَّتْ كَلِمَةُ رَبِّكَ صِدْقًا وَعَدْلًا, the word of your Lord will be fulfilled in truth and justice. وَقَوْلُهُ تَعَالَى وَكَلَّمَ اللَّهُ مُوسَى تَكْلِيمًا, Allah spoke to Moses with decisive speech. مِنْهُمْ مَنْ
Afwan. And this ayah that we mentioned before, some of al-Bid'ah, they try to change this ayah. Like we said ta'til, tahrif, it could be lafdan or ma'nan. It could be you could change the meaning. You could do tahrif of the meaning through the meaning of the word, like istawa, but you say the actual meaning is istawla, which is a less degree of evilness, and even a bigger degree, which is completely kufr, is to change the actual pronunciation of the word, as they would say in this ayah, وَكَلَّمَ اللَّهَ instead of وَكَلَّمَ اللَّهُ. وَكَلَّمَ اللَّهَ Musa taklima would mean, and Musa spoke to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Rather, the actual meaning, what was revealed to us from the seven heavens from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is وَكَلَّمَ اللَّهُ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he himself, he spoke to Musa alayhi salam. It's a clear speech, and there's no denying it. And the reason why a lot of Ahl Bid'ah and the Mutakallimin, especially the Ash'ara, obviously, they try to avoid saying that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks, because again, they did the same thing. They do takyif and they do tamthil. What do they say? They say, if we say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and subhanallah, when what they say from the Zahir, it looks very like, to someone who doesn't know the Qawa'id, who doesn't know the Deen, it sounds very like convincing, because they're trying to do tanzih of Allah. They're trying to free Allah from any naqs, from any deficiency, and just put all perfection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But in essence, they're actually doing the opposite. For example, they say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we can't say he speaks. Why? Because if we say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks, that means what? That means he has a tongue, he has vocal cords, he has a throat, all this nonsense that they say. But in reality, had you just applied the ayah, لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٌ وَهُوَ السَّمِيعُ الْبَصِيرُ, who said just for Allah to speak that he has to have a vocal cord, he has to have a tongue? These are all things they put these conditions upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The limits of the creation, they put it on the creator. You know, and this is where they went wrong, is where and this just shows you the importance of the qaida that Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah he set in the beginning of this book. He says, من غير تحريف ولا تعطيل ولا تمثيل ومن غير تمثيل ولا تكييف. It just shows you the importance of qawaid in Islam, of having principles, especially when learning. Every single ayah that was mentioned so far, you can apply these principles. And obviously for the speech of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they try to do tanzih of Allah, they try to free Allah from any deficiency, only for them to fall into a bigger problem. Because if we're going to enter that bab, if we're going to enter that, open that door where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, how they think, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if he speaks, that means he has a tongue, he has a vocal cord, he has a throat, all this nonsense. Then if we're going to, on that train of thought, then if you say he doesn't speak, and they call it kalam nafsi, like internal speech, which also doesn't make sense at all, but they say kalam nafsi. And if you say that, then that means you're saying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is his akhras. He's mute. He doesn't speak, which is even more insulting than your first, what you said first, that he talks, because you're doing either or. You're doing tamthil. You're doing tamthil either of someone who speaks and he has vocal cords and a tongue, or you're doing tamthil of someone who doesn't speak at all. So you either way you put it, it's completely wrong what they do and what they say, and it's just a horrible train of thought, because they fell into tamthil or takif. As for Ahl Sunnah, what do we say? Just like we've been saying throughout the whole book, we believe what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said about himself. We believe that he spoke without takif or without tamthil, without asking how. Nor do we ask, nor do we do tashbih, or nor do we do comparisons to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So a lot of verses is very hard for them to take, and they don't believe the Qur'an is the speech of Allah. They actually believe it's hikayah. It's basically and you have some of the Imam, the way the Imam Suyuti rahimahullah, he said that the Qur'an, we believe Ahl Sunnah, نزل به الروح الأمين على قلبك لتكون من المنذرين بلسان عربي مبين. We believe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he sent the Qur'an, he spoke the Qur'an with love, with his speech, to with huruf and speech, actual speech, to Jibril alayhi salam. And Jibril alayhi salam, as he is the messenger to the messengers on earth, he's the messenger, he's the one who goes to all the prophets. He gave the wahi, he gave the Qur'an he taught it to Jibril, to Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. So that's the chain. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he revealed it to Jibril, and Jibril alayhi salam, he revealed it to Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And obviously the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he revealed it to the Sahaba until we have with what we have today. And that just shows the virtues of the Qur'an. But like I was saying, so Suyuti rahimahullah, he said that basically Allah, he just put it in the Lawh al-Mahfuz, hikayah an Rabbi. He put it in the Lawh al-Mahfuz, and Jibril alayhi salam took it from the Lawh al-Mahfuz, and then he sent it to Jibril, just to avoid believing or saying that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the Suyuti rahimahullah, he's a great scholar in Islam, great scholar in hadith, tafsir. And just because someone makes a mistake in Aqeedah and stuff, doesn't mean we throw them under the bus, or we totally dismiss them. Just as we've seen a lot of extreme people today, some scholars from today and from the living and from the dead, if they make one mistake, yes, even if it is a major mistake, may Allah forgive them, may Allah have mercy upon them, but we don't totally cancel them out, especially all the works and that they've done for us, all the mu'allafat, all the books, and all the juhud that they put in. We ask Allah to forgive them, and they just erred just because someone commits kufr. And we're not saying that about them specifically, the scholars, but if a person commits kufr, it doesn't make them a kafir. And if a person commits a bid'ah, it doesn't make them mubtada'. So we have to be, especially for speaking about the scholars, we have to be very, very, use our words very wisely. And we have to know that the flesh of the scholars, like the ulama mentioned, the flesh of the scholar is poisonous. But we don't slander them or talk ill of them, especially the ones who passed away. We ask Allah to forgive them and us, and also to forgive their shortcomings and to forgive our shortcomings. So basically, before we continue this part, what we believe about the speech of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the kalam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is that is Kalaamullah munazzal minhu bada wa ilayhi ya'ud. Kalaamullah munazzal ghayru makhluq minhu bada wa ilayhi ya'ud. So what does this mean? It means we believe that the Qur'an is the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it came down from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like we mentioned, the chain. And then minhu bada ghayru makhluq, and the Salaf, they never used to use this term ghayru makhluq. It's uncreated, because we believe it's the speech of Allah. The Salaf never used to use this term, ghayru makhluq, until the time of Mumin, when Greek philosophy came in, and the scholars of the Sultan, and even the Sultan himself, they were forcing all the other scholars to say that the Qur'an was makhluq. The Qur'an is a created thing. Because they say if the Qur'an is uncreated, then how do we have it with us? So that's the main point, that they tried to force all the scholars to say that the Qur'an was created, and the only ones who stood in front of this fitna, instead of in front of this bid'ah, is Imam Ahmad and Muhammad bin Nuh, rahimahumullah ta'ala. May Allah have mercy on both of them. But Muhammad bin Nuh, I think he passed away before the fitna picked up. So Imam Ahmad alone was alone with himself with this. He was the only one defending this clearly. Other scholars also, they didn't believe this, but they would do ta'wil. They would go around it, and they would, generally speaking, they would say, for example, they would put their hands up. They would be like, the Qur'an and the Torah and the Injil and Zabur, these are created, and they would be referring to their three fingers, except the Qur'an, and they would say these are created. And in times of these types of times, you can do stuff like that, but some scholars say no. That's if your life is in danger, even though their life was in danger. But that's if it's something personal with you. But if it's something about the whole deen, you have no choice to water down the deen or do ta'wil or do any of that, because this comes to the deen. This is the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And defending upon it is wajib. Defending the deen is wajib. And and some scholars say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saved, or he brought victory to Islam through the ridda of Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, and through the mihna of Imam Ahmad